here we are. Isn't that odd?
So what's your podcast about?
Oh, it's about psychology, true crime, supernatural stuff, the occasional paranormal or philosophical rant.
Well, maybe I could check it out sometime.
My people believe that the White Lodge is a place where the spirits that rule man and nature here reside.
What is it? This thing called existence.
Trying to free your mind, but I can only show you the door. You're the one that has to walk through it.
You ask that question long enough and it suddenly hits you that if you could answer it, you wouldn't know what terms to put the answer in.
There is also a legend of a place called the Black Lodge, that every spirit must pass through there on the way to perfection. You will meet your own shadow self. My people call it the dweller on the threshold.
Unfortunately, no one can be told what the Matrix is. You have to see it for yourself.
The reason why certain people turn to philosophy, why I became a philosopher, was that since I was a little boy, I always felt that existence as such was weird.
Have you ever had a dream that you were so sure was real? What if you were unable to wake from that dream? How would you know the difference between the dream world and the real world?
What's odd stands out. What's even lies flat. Each one of you is odd, strange, unique, particular, different.
You may be fearless in this world, but there are other worlds.
You begin to scratch your head and think about why is that so? Well, after a while, you realize that's a meaningless question.
Welcome to the real world.
This is your nautical lantern on the dangerous seas of darkness. Let's push off from the placid shore of the status quo and explore what's beyond the horizon. I am your host, BT, and this is Truth and Shadow, your podcast of the supernatural.
Reality doesn't care what we believe about it. And that's both comforting and deeply unsettling. Because if reality exists independently of our opinions, then every disagreement humanity has ever had comes down to this single question. Are any of us seeing it more clearly? We like to think we've reached a point where the world is largely understood, that the great mysteries have been reduced to equations, chemical reactions, psychological processes. We don't say there are no mysteries anymore, we simply assume they were temporary. Given enough time, data, computing power, and every shadow will eventually disappear beneath the light of intellectual expansionism. Maybe. But history has a way of humbling that kind of confidence. There was a time when entire oceans crossed the globe unseen because no one possessed the means to cross them. Radio waves filled the air long before anyone ever built a receiver. Countless organisms lived and died before a single human looked through a microscope. Reality wasn't something that was waiting to be invented by man. It was waiting to be discovered. And why should we assume that discovery is over? Why should we even believe that 21st century humanity has finally reached the edge of the map? Maybe our ancestors weren't as naive as we imagine. Across continents, across millennia, cultures that never met one another shared curious assumptions. They believed reality extended beyond what the senses immediately revealed. They disagreed about what occupied that unseen landscape. But they rarely questioned whether it existed. And us moderns seem to have inherited the opposite assumption. Science tells us if something can't be measured, it probably is not there. But that's not an honest scientific conclusion. That's a philosophical one. Science is one of humanity's greatest achievements because it gives us extraordinary tools for exploring reality. But tools don't define the size of the universe, they define the limits of what we can currently detect. Those are not the same things. Human beings are amazing at being bad witnesses. We misremember conversations. We mistake coincidence for causation. We find faces in clouds and patterns in static. But skepticism itself has a shadow, a darker side, and it becomes just another belief system when it refuses to investigate what doesn't fit its expectations. A believer explains things away too quickly. The skeptic dismisses things too quickly. But curiosity, it does neither of those things. Maybe that's the posture worth recovering, not believing everything, not denying everything. Simply acting that reality is under no obligation to fit comfortably inside the boundaries of our current understanding. I've begun to wonder if we spend too much time arguing over whether the metaphysical exists and not enough time asking a simpler question. What if this entire existence has always been larger than our ability to perceive it? Not because it's hiding, it's more likely because we have yet to learn how to see it. And if that's true, then every mystery becomes something different. Not a puzzle to conquer or a superstition to ridicule, but an invitation. So perhaps the real question isn't whether the metaphysical exists. Maybe that's been the wrong question all along. The better question is whether we've mistaken the limits of our perception for the limits of reality. Every generation inherits a map of the world, then inevitably someone ventures beyond its edges. And perhaps we're standing at one of those edges now. Not at the end of knowledge, but at the beginning of another frontier, one where consciousness, coincidence, intuition, ancient traditions, strange encounters, and experiences that refuse easy explanation no longer deserves a blind belief nor an automatic dismissal. They deserve honest investigation. That's the space I would like to explore. With some kind of disciplined curiosity and the willingness to follow evidence wherever it leads, even if it challenges the assumption we carry into the conversation. Because reality has never promised to be simple. It has never asked our permission to exist. And it certainly has never confined itself to what we certainly understand. The shadows at the edge of the map may not contain the answers, but they are still worth exploring. We step into a world where faith, energy, and the unseen collide. What do we do when we have an encounter with God? When the voice we hear seems to reach beyond ourselves and into something eternal? Such moments have shaped lives, launched movements, and stirred both faith and controversy. They invite pursuit, but also demand discernment. From practices of healing and energy to claims about the nature of reality itself, the line between the mystical and the orthodox begins to blur. Beneath it all lies a deeper question. How do we test what we experience? And what exactly are we being invited into? To help us unlock the mystery is our guest. He is the silent spokesman, contemporary contemplative, and wisdom wizard. Michael, welcome to Truth and Shadow Podcast.
Hi, Brandon. Thank you so much for having me. And wow, I'm floored by that. That was just so well done.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So as we begin, and since what you do is new to me, and it'll be new to a lot of our audience, can you please feel free to leave or tell us about yourself and what it is you do and where people can find you?
Okay, well, my name is Michael Monk. I'm a healer and a teacher of metaphysics, spirituality, and energy mastery, known for my focused devotion to God. And my website, where all of my work is available, is www.michaelmonk.bio. That's MichaelMonk.bio, michaelmonk.bio. I've been on the scene since 2011, teaching self-empowerment and practical techniques that anybody can do to turn their physical life into a spiritual life, to begin to see energy, to begin to feel energy, to get all five of your senses into the energetic spectrum, to be permanently fused to what they call extrasensory perception, to travel out of the body and even manifest demonstratable abilities such as mild to moderate forms of telekinesis. And that's how my work started. And I went through a lot of experience before the work. I was originally awakened from a more religious standpoint. My first spiritual experience was God talking to me. My second spiritual experience was being instantaneously healed from an open flesh wound by prayer in the name of Jesus. I was gifted with a really strong relationship with God through the Holy Spirit, to where I could begin to receive and test information. And over the course of 8 years, I experienced many miracles that defy our understanding of reality. And as God was teaching me, I tried to have it all line up with the available churches, and it just didn't. So eventually I just found the courage to walk my own path and to immerse myself in my own experiences. That's when God was able to lead me towards energy mastery, towards meditation, towards finding my own spirit, which is when things really skyrocketed. So initially I was really focused on self-empowerment, and I took that really far, so far that I forgot about God for a while. And I ended up swimming with the sharks and, so to speak, dwelling in some what you would call negative spiritual energy, even some spiritual warfare, and nearly lost myself in that when I remembered, like remembered, my spiritual relationship with God. And since then, I've been teaching and practicing the self-empowerment, but with a focus on enhancing your relationship with our Creator and being in what we call alignment with all things collective consciousness, with the Creator of this world, all things positive, good, right, and true. And that's been my focus for the last 6 years.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, I found that your journey basically began with what you had described as a powerful encounter with the voice of God. And from your perspective, how should a person begin to interpret that, right? How would someone integrate, or how did you integrate that into your life and be able to move forward in a way that was grounded and healthy? And so for someone's basically who may have had that same or a similar experience, maybe not the same one, obviously, but a similar experience to you, but doesn't know what to do next, what are some of the ways we can basically talk about how to respond to that within something that feels truly divine?
Very good question. And it took me a long time to figure this out, because I did become quite ungrounded for a while. My family was scared and worried about my mental health and all sorts of things. I don't have these issues anymore. What I would say has helped me more than anything, well, two things. By keeping true to my relationship with the Creator, and by understanding metaphysics. Understanding metaphysics is the psychological framework by which you can immerse yourself into these experiences and remain practical and grounded.
Yeah, and you often speak about energy basically as something people can become aware of and then work with. And so basically, what do you mean by that, so we can understand a little bit more of that language, because not everybody defines it the same way. So how would you describe, what you mean by energy and working with it?
Okay, well, by that I would describe the three layers of our beingness. physical particles, obviously, and that's the perception that we have, and that's true. You are your physical body. That is a truth, but there's a greater truth than that, and that is that you are spirit. You are a spirit inside of a body, and our spirit works through mental awareness and flexation of a spiritual energy that's of a lighter spectrum than what is scientifically measurable. And we use this subtle spiritual energy to manipulate the electrical system. So through meditation and extrasensory perception, you can start to become aware of this vibrational energy inside and outside of your body that has magnetic qualities and electrical qualities and temperature qualities too, like heat, coolness, electricity, and vibrational qualities. So you begin to get your sensory mechanisms in tune with the spirit, and you can see what's been puppeteering your body the whole time. And that's the second phase of our beingness. The third phase of our beingness is pure awareness, pure consciousness. And this is the part of ourself that needs nothing to survive. This part of ourself dwells in perfectly empty space and is neither the energy nor the particles, but is the space that holds it all together. And these are the three layers of beingness.
Okay. Yeah. And then on top of that, how did your own understanding of this basically develop over time? And I mean, basically, when you first experience it to the way you teach it now, because I'm assuming there's been some growth on your own part.
Oh, yeah, quite a bit. Well, like I said, it started out religious, and I was trying to make my experiences fit into what I'd learned previously as a child, but as I began following the promptings of what I call the Holy Spirit, I was led towards more metaphysical materials, such as the Law of One, which is a channeling by the entity Ra, done through Carl Ruckert in the early '80s. And this helped me to understand, because Ra says in plain black and white English that the physical world as we know it is an interpretation that our senses provide to us, but it's not actually physical, that beneath it is a framework of fluctuation of waveform vibration, and that our physical sensory mechanisms are what interpret it as a physical reality. So when I read that, I really, really understood it. And in that moment, the voice of God and the presence of God hit me really, really strong, because it was happy. It was pleased that I had understood this, and asked me to go outside and get away from people. And I listened and I obeyed. And as soon as I got outside and stopped walking, the whole world began rippling and shimmering, like very much like heat on a blacktop on a summer day, how it starts to ripple in your vision, except there was rainbow energy everywhere. And I felt at peace. I felt at home in this place, like I'd been there before. And I opened my heart to it, and my physical body began to do the same thing. And it was astounding. I could see through my body. It was transparent. It was made out of this rippling rainbow light. And then I got a little bit scared, and the experience ended. A little bit after that, I kept seeking how to get there myself, because I was assisted. And that's when I discovered the clairvoyant state and how to access to get your extrasensory perception to where you can begin to see the waveform energy that's everywhere. And as most people understand, the vision is the leader of the five senses. If you see something, it provides excellent evidence that you can then touch that something, or hear that something, or smell, or taste, etc. So when you use the vision as the first thing to open up, all the other senses come online, and then you just start to experience it as the greater truth.
Right on, yeah. And so a lot of your work seems to basically revolve around helping people grow spiritually in a very experiential way. And I was thinking about something Swami Vivekananda had said, talking about education. And the quote was, if I paraphrase it, I'm sorry, but we want education by which character is formed, strength of mind is increased, and then the intellect is expanded, and by which one can stand on their own feet. I'm probably going to have to go back and double check that quote. But as you're helping these other people going through this kind of journey, what kind of changes do you see happen first? Emotional, mental, physical, something else entirely?
Definitely emotional and mental. The physical comes online pretty soon after, because as you begin to tune to these spectrums of vibration, health and healing and wholeness of the body, it is a side effect of that. But the mental and the emotional definitely come first, and it increases every good aspect of life when you have the extrasensory perception. When you begin to see the spirit behind all things, you realize that we're not in a dull, drab, boring, third dimensional world of particles and separation. Meaning this reality teaches us through the sensory mechanisms of the five senses of the nervous system and the neurons of the brain, that we're in a world that we are not the world. We're a body walking through that world, and this world is not us. Well, that is a contrary truth to what spirit understands. And this is from a perspective. I've had over 1,000 out-of-body experiences. And I learned real quickly that spirit doesn't have these boundaries. In spirit, you can expand your awareness with just a flick of your consciousness, and you can become the air around you, the ground that you walk on, the sunlight that shines on you, the tree in front of you. Spirit is innately one with all things, whereas the physical body is separate. So when you start to experience this yourself, your idea of self drastically changes to where, oh my God, I am the sunlight, I am the air, I am the ground that I walk on. And the beauty and the bliss of that is simply undescribable, especially when you couple into that paradigm to find your creator in this, because God is everywhere. God is everything and everyone. So to find God in the natural world takes the beauty and the bliss of that to the next level. So for me, it's been a lifesaver. I was always very depressed. I had a really hard time with this life. It's my belief, and still is, that the more intelligent you are, the harder it is to be happy, because you see the world for what it is. But to step out of that physical paradigm and to spiritualize your physical experience provides an infinite passport out of that paradigm. And now all of a sudden you're in a magical world that the mainstream doesn't even know about. They think it's just a plain boring world, but it's not. Magic is real, God is real, and we can experience it now. We don't need to have a near-death experience. We don't need to wait until we die.
Yeah, absolutely. Many years ago, when I was looking into Sufism, specifically the Naqshbandi order, I don't know if you're familiar with that, but there's a teacher. Her name was Irina Tweedy, and you had said something that reminded me of this quote directly. And she had said that we put ourselves into a prison, and we have to let ourselves out because no one else can do it for us. And the key to that prison is through the heart. And I was thinking about that as you were talking, because of the fact that you've spent these years teaching others, building a community around these ideas. And I'm imagining that you have learned from your students and have understood that it is through your heart that you're opening this up. I mean, this is what I you might not have used those words, but that's what I'm hearing. So what do you think about that? I mean, how has working with others shaped your life, basically?
Well, it's given me a sense of purpose. I think purpose is huge. You have to be purpose driven. You have to feel like your life has a meaning. And if you're a good person, which I believe most people are, then you have to feel that your life benefits others. So it's a natural balm for the soul to help others through their situation, whether they're just bored or depressed in life, or another common one is they've had a very powerful spiritual experience that nobody understands. So they can come to me and I will understand. And not only that, but I'll show them the door to have lots more experience. So yeah, that's absolutely correct. And about the heart, just a quick bit about that. The heart is absolutely the key. And I do teach that deep in the center of our chest, we have this beating mechanism that, scientifically speaking, produces a field of energy many feet beyond the body, which is 1,000 times electrically stronger than the brain and 10,000 times magnetically stronger. Well, I've also discovered that this field of energy has a webbing. It has a system of pathways very similar to the neurons in the brain, but much more complex, much more intelligent. And this is where the Spirit of God rests within us and communicates with us through that heart field intelligence, which makes any human mind look like a toddler. And so we quickly learn that as spiritual people to let go of our mental understandings in favor of what the heart is teaching us. And then eventually our idea of a mind centers itself in our chest instead of in our head.
Yeah, for many people, these kinds of spiritual experiences can be very personal. They can be alarming. And I'm thinking that they raise an awful lot of questions about how they fit into, their own subject, their greater understanding of the created order, basically. And what that means is you're going to help them out. You're going to help them direct that experience with some reflection and interpretation, and use integration, and use like the other Jungian words, the collective unconscious, etc. And so there's a lot of psychology that's involved in this. It's not all just metaphysics. There's a lot of mind work here that you're talking about. And so how do you make sense of what others have encountered and guide them through what you've encountered in a way that remains meaningful in the broad sense of the idea?
Well, you're right about the psychological part, and that's interesting. I've actually trained over the course of my teaching 2 licensed and practicing psychologists, went all the way through my material because they were aware that this is the higher psychology. And they were also aware that most of their patients that are deemed mentally ill are they're having an experience beyond current mainstream understanding, that they're not actually ill. They're just having an experience without a framework, a logical framework of which to understand it. And the psychology is huge, 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 huge. It's I call it spiritual psychology. And it's the ultimate technology within the mind of God. If you understand the law of one, the idea that everything came from God and that the universe is a fractalized version of God, and everybody's holding that within them. So I am you are me, love your neighbor as yourself because your neighbor is yourself. And the idea of soul family, past lives, future lives, well, I can validate all of that through my direct experience. I have literally embodied other lives besides this one in simultaneous time, countless times. So I've learned that there's a different type of psychology. It's one of the first things that I start to teach is how to access your soul family, your past, future, and simultaneous lives with a mirror meditation, where with clairvoyance you can actually see these other parts of yourself. And most people are completely unaware, but they shift through 5 to 10 primary personalities throughout the day. And if you can start to identify these personalities, you can start to learn which ones are good at business, which ones are good at love, which ones, because they all have different specialties. And I encourage people to begin to vibrate into their whole self, which is where you become all of your past lives, all of your future lives, you become your soul, and you become what I call a multi-dimensional personality, which is a whole new framework of psychology. And the more other selves you integrate within yourself, the more stable you become, the wiser you become, the more full, what's the right word for that? Your opinions and everything that comes from such a multiple perspective that it makes more sense to a lot more people.
Your work really touches on ideas that sit basically on, this edge between, like you had said earlier on, that your family was, worried about your mental state. This is kind of where this place is, and I can see this is kind of what you do. Is it's like, there's some stuff going on in a lot of people, spiritually, metaphysically, etc., that they have to really kind of internalize, examine, integrate, like you said. You use the language of like past lives, future lives, multidimensional being, and I'll add another one for you, multi-temporal, because it's past and future lives. But on top of that, but if we look at some, and then another idea is, if time is an illusion, that all the past, present, and future are all now, we're going to have a different view on processes of helping people through metaphysical experiences. And so I'm curious about what ideas you explore with your clients and how to help them have a clear-headed experience with whatever it is they felt.
Well, hard to get specific on that unless I have a case study. But I teach the metaphysics, the multiplicity of personality, the past, future lives, and how it all lines up with their spirit. So I give them a framework by which how to understand these, and I'm really big on integration. This is all so important. The schizophrenic person, for example, the guy who talks to the voice, that's real. I know what that is. He's accessing his reincarnational pattern. Like, this is an other self of his, but you're not supposed to be dialoguing with it. You're supposed to open your heart and invite it into the whole self, to where it becomes a part of your thought process instead of a disembodied entity that you're talking to. So I'm able quite often, when people have these high level experiences that would get them labeled as crazy, to make logical sense of it, either through metaphysics or biology or even physics. I relate it to as many mentally digestible things as possible. And so I usually go for the mental, the emotional, the metaphysical, and the scientific as much as I can, to understand it from every level possible.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking about this in kind of the way that you're talking about it. So, like you said, the schizophrenic, the multi-personality disorder, whatever we call it nowadays, gosh, changes names all the time. But no, you're right. There is a multiplicity of selves, and we hear voices. A lot of them say it's external to themselves, but like I said, integration and all that. But if you look at someone who's like a sociopath, the sociopath is formed by a culture around themselves that are so fragmented that they take what little of them and fragment it more. And I think that can break some people. And it's the same thing. There's a collective need to become aware that you are me and you, etc. And I think that's kind of where you were going with your institute. I think that was one of your main goals for your institute. I can hear it when you give your answers. And so I'm curious about talking about, you just talk about some of those ideas that you work with for this institute and the way that you basically organize it.
Absolutely. I believe with all of my heart that what I teach, not my teachings, I'm definitely not going to claim to be the only way or anything, but where my teachings lead, I believe, is the answer to all of the world's problems. And I'm not exaggerating at all. Once every individual being knows that they're a spirit, knows through experience, not because they've read in a book, but knows through direct experience that they're a spirit having a spiritual experience. Once they know through direct experience that you are the planet that you're abusing, well, obviously you stop abusing the planet, because Earth doesn't become some place you're visiting. It becomes who and what you are. And once we see the interconnectivity between other people, and that you feel people inside of yourself empathically, well, why would you hurt another person's feelings? Their feelings are your feelings. So all of a sudden, everybody would treat each other properly. There'd be no more war. Science and mathematics, everything would change. The directions that we take, everything. I call this coming out of separation consciousness, which is what this world is all about, the experience of what makes everything different, what makes you separate from everything else, to switching that direction to what I call unity consciousness. What's the sameness of everything? What's the interconnectivity of everything? How is everything connected? So a personal relationship on an individual level with spirit and with creator will change our society from the inside out in all of the major areas.
Yeah, you're speaking to a real deep integrated part of the mind and the human experience. Now, you said that, the spirit having a spiritual experience, the spirit's having a physical experience. There's all sorts of things just going on with what we are. And I find truth in the reality that everybody is basically called to wherever they kind of find themselves, if that makes sense. Different people are going to turn to Sufism, Zen Buddhism, Christianity, whatever it is, and they're going to be called to that. And I think that's all part of them realizing, for the Christian, the realization that everybody is the image of God. And if you start seeing everybody as the image of God in all created things as made by God, like you stop experiencing and interacting with the otherness. You remove the idea of the other from your own vocabulary, and it's me. And I think I hear that when you're talking about it. When we need to find basically a healthy balance, right? We need to find a healthy balance within our lives. And that involves, we're physical beings, so we have to do physical things in this existence. We also cannot deny our spiritual self. We have to do spiritual things. We cannot deny our mental self. We have to do mental things. And so when an individual person is looking for you, Michael, and they're looking to figure out what's going on, and it's like, look, this is what you've experienced. Let me help you discern that. What are the processes that you like to utilize to help them understand where they are and where they are basically going?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I get it. Yeah, I would say balance is the number one thing here. We were born with 2 legs, 2 arms, 2 eyes, 2 ears. I think balance is the biggest lesson that we have. So the health of the physical is very important. The spiritual people that become experiential, they all of a sudden, they tend to be incapable of small talk all of a sudden. And now they only want to be around people where they can talk about these grandiose things. And that seems superior to them in the moment. But this is just the ego trying to gratify itself secretly or connivingly. It's a new ego. It's a spiritual ego, and this will it's a pitfall. Everybody who goes down that and does the identity crisis, like departs from their human identity and starts saying, I'm the Archangel Gabriel, because of experience they had, or I was Jesus, or it gets really diluted. So I keep pulling them back to the physical experience, that you are who you are now. And who you are now is capable of empathy. Who you are now is in a collective consciousness. So you can know yourself as having been any being that is ever lived or ever will live. So I help them to come out of the identity crisis and to come out of the inability to enjoy very natural physical things by reminding them to exercise, to take care of the physical body, by taking part in physical activities that you enjoy, be it reading books, playing video games, going fishing or camping. Just normal 3D things are a very important part of that balance. And then the metaphysics and the spiritual psychology, that provides a balance for the mental. The way I balance the emotional is by about the 4th lesson in my awakening course, I teach the students how to connect their breath to energy. So currently the breath is used to move air in and out, but there's spiritual ranges of breath where you can start breathing through your body, and it's tangible. You can feel it. Breathe in and out the top of your head, out your hands, or out your whole body at the same time. So I teach about the endocrine system of the human body, and that this is actually where the idea of chakras came from, because the ancients could see the spiritual energy as it would interact through the glands of the endocrine system. Like we have testicles, ovaries, adrenals at the solar plexus level, the thymus behind the heart, thyroid in the throat, pineal and pituitary in the head. These release hormones which have an equivalent color, an equivalent vibration, and this is how the legend of chakras formed. Well, once you connect the breath to energy, the humans end up seeing invariably, all humans, if they're not awakened, they're locked between the root chakra and the solar plexus. So they're at all times thinking about sex, food, emotional conundrums, or their sense of identity, which is what the solar plexus is all about. So your average human is always sex, food, emotion, self-identity, sex, food, emotion, self-identity. Well, through the breath, I teach them to unstick that. The modern life keeps us stuck at the solar plexus level to where the heart can't open, that energy column, the tree of life can't grow upwards. And part of that is our posture. We're always hunched over, we're on devices, we're driving cars. And so I teach a blend of posture, spinal techniques, and breathing that get their energy up into that thymus gland, come out of the adrenals. The most common imbalance I see is people are triggering their adrenals through their self-identity relationships with everything that they experience. And the adrenal energy is good. All the chakras have their place. But the adrenal energy in your average human, because the solar plexus is blocked, tends to drip down into the stomach. So the adrenal goes down to the stomach. That's where you get fear, anxiety, doubt, depression, worry, stress, all of those things, where if you can learn to connect your breath and just breathe that right on up, straighten your spine, that adrenal energy goes to the heart and it becomes power and purpose and strength and fortitude. And the thymus, which is the gland responsible for the heart chakra, produces the white blood cells. And so you begin to become more healthy and more resistant to disease and all sorts of things. Well, then we have the thyroid in the throat, the pineal, the pituitary. So through the breath, we can make sure that the energy is free flowing through all the major glands of our endocrine system, which provides a hormonal balance. And all of a sudden, you don't need mental mastery to be happy, to be secure, to be at peace. Right? Because some people, they find the mentality of it, and that's great. And then they start working through notebooks. Here's this belief, this belief's damaging me. No, negative thoughts, positive thoughts. Where have you ever noticed that when you're happy, you think happy thoughts? And when you're sad and depressed, you think nothing but sad and depressed thoughts. So if you can change the energy, and you can through this hormonal breath energy relationship, then you change the nature of all of your thoughts, and the mental work becomes irrelevant.
Yeah, I'm familiar with prana yoga, and I think that's kind of what you're talking about a little bit there. So we can give it kind of a title so people can look that up. There's a couple of teachers in that I tell people, Yogananda and obviously Vivekananda. Those are kind of like my two people on that. There's a lot of other people that talk about it. I mean, it was Yogananda who said that basically a genuine smile distributes the cosmic current. Like you said, if you're happy, you feel happy thoughts. The happy man is less likely to be subject to disease, for example, or because the breath is the life, right? I mean, it's in everything. So I understand that wholeheartedly what you're talking about, and that's really nice to hear other individuals understand and talk about it in this level, because like you said, you can get stuck. The egoic mind actually gets stuck in looking and writing and journaling in these notebooks and trying to figure out what the root cause of everything was in the past, and not addressing right now, which is exactly what breath is. We don't breathe in the past. We breathe now. Only in the now are we breathing. And I think that's so important. It's really great to hear that that's what you're talking about and teaching within the different levels of the being, because the chakra are just parts of the being. And you're absolutely right about where people are, and they typically are hung up in the egoic mind. I think the ego really is kind of in the center of the chest, oddly enough, the solar plexus.
Yes.
So anyways, as we kind of go forward, excuse me for my detraction there, but
no problem.
We're all people, and we're all exploring spirituality in a deeper way. Many of us are. Some of us are closed off to it through our own egoic mind, basically. Those who atheate, basically, or those who deny that there's a metaphysic, and it's kind of cutting off one. It's like cutting off half your body, It just doesn't make any sense.
It's anti-intellectualism. How can you claim to know that spirit isn't real? That it's anti-intellectuals. I don't understand it. Like, agnostic should be the most a person professes.
Right. And so what I'm thinking about, kind of a question is looking at this. I want to just basically kind of play around a little bit here with the breath a little bit, and kind of talk about that connection between spiritual growth and personal transformation. So within that, you said it was your fourth lecture with the prana, or with the breath?
I I'm sorry, it's my sixth lesson.
Sixth
where
lesson.
We connect the breath to energy.
That's all right. Yes, breath to energy. What have you found helps people remain committed in the long term to working with that breath and feeling that energy, like the now stuff?
Well, the fruits of what they get, being able to determine how you feel in the moment. Instead of that everybody lives to feel, whether or not they've figured that out yet. We live to feel. And people are chasing facts in order to feel a certain way about life, about themselves. That all day, the next promotion, the next entertainment, the next meal, the next sexual experience, the next iPhone, the next device, the new car. These are facts that give us a permission slip to feel a certain way. But with what I teach through the breath and activating your hormones consciously bypasses these permission slips of facts. So now all of a sudden you can feel however you want to feel in any moment. And if your own hormones aren't enough, the sunlight always stands ready to help. So does the nature, the birds, the bees, the soil, the plants growing. It's all designed to give us a fortitude of positive emotional feelings. So that being that we live to feel, the feelings that are available to you as an energy worker, as a practitioner, especially if you also have a devotion to knowing your creator, takes it even more next level. That what you're able to feel so far surpasses anything that you could ever experience through any fact or any drug. So people get this fulfillment and they realize that spirituality is going to be infinitely more fulfilling than anything else they could ever physically do.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically any journey of growth right there in a nutshell. And we're all going to experience periods of development and then moments of uncertainty or difficulty within that. And when you're helping and teaching and organizing groups and helping people through basically those times of difficulty, because you're going to have that whenever you're growing, whenever you're taking steps forward spiritually, you're going to have what feels like steps back. It just happens. And so I'm curious, Michael, what kind of steps or mindset or perspectives tend to be the most helpful to help somebody when they feel that way?
Okay. So when the energy is out of balance, when you're in a negative energy and you're unable to change it with the breath, that this does happen sometimes. Sometimes for a plethora of different reasons, it can happen. This is what I counsel: to shut the mind off, because all of your thoughts are going to be colored or tainted by that energy. Just like there's rose-colored glasses, there's sewage-colored glasses. And so if you have the wrong glasses on, every single thought that you have is going to reinforce that. So I recommend shutting the mind off and sitting with the energy exactly as it is, with no judgment. The first step in energetic mastery is that in order to change a thing, you must know yourself as being that thing. Case in point, if you sit on your leg the wrong way and it goes numb and you stand up to walk, even though that's your leg, the leg is not going to respond to you. So you first have to feel something in order to change it with your mind. And so if you deny that feeling, then you're bypassing the empathic means of actually connecting with that energy. And that there's cycles within the soul. I like to relate this to outdoor garden lights that pulse through different colors. Like it'll go green and then dim down, and then it'll go blue, orange. And this is very much like the soul. We have primary pulses of energy that are coming out of us like a fountain in a series, like a clock, just like the universal clock, the tides, the phases of the moon, the shifting of the sun, the planets, all of that. There's a spiritual clock that happens too. And so stuff from within the soul comes up, and this does happen. And so you have an opportunity. if you choose when these cycles come to think, to take thought, all of your thoughts will be colored. You're going to add to that problem so that when that cycle comes back, it's going to be even stronger. However, if you can pacify the mind, clear the mind, sit with the energy, breathe it, hold it, and love it exactly as it is now, then you heal that pulse, that cycle in the soul. And the next time it comes around, it might not even drag you down.
Yeah, a lot there. And I think it's basically there's this desire to understand ourselves. And when a person basically says enough is enough with this, 9 to 5 kind of situation, they go, look, there's more here to life than, I don't know, doing the daily everything, right? I mean, it's really hard for me to speak about it because being silent is probably one of my favorite pastimes. Like, you don't have to talk. And so when I'm thinking about these deeper things, I can't think of what I want to say because I just kind of know. So let's see if I can make this a question for people who are basically integrating these new spiritual insights into their daily lives. That's what I want to ask. Into their daily lives. What does that actually look like on a practical level?
Okay, well, it is very important to have a routine. We grow through routine. If you want to be a bodybuilder and build your muscles, you show up with consistency and you do a repetitive pattern. Rituals reinforce future rituals. And so it's very important to have a routine. So I recommend starting out with a solid 20 minutes a day. And the idea being that in this 20 minutes, you are going to grow your spirit through direct experience. You are going to spiritualize your physical experience to a higher degree. And that in turn is going to elevate the whole rest of your day. From there, it's a very natural progression. I would say the target is 1 to 2 hours a day devoted. Like all day, I'm connected to energy. So I'm always working on myself, but I spend 1 to 2 hours of focused where I'm not doing anything else but trying to reach, new levels with my energy. But I grew into that naturally, and I do it because I love it. So I start a typical student out on 20 minutes a day of the practices that they are the most fluent at. I have 7 different primary practices in my awakening course, and everybody is good at some and worse at others. I have the students stick with what they're good at and to do more of that. And then as you get results from that, you start to just experience the magic and the bliss of it. Then you're naturally going to figure out ways that you can integrate more into your daily time, even if you work a 9 to 5. Like one of the big meditations I teach is a 5-minute meditation in the mirror where you open up clairvoyance, see your aura, and open your heart. And then if you can see the aura in the mirror reflection, well, the mirror tells you what's going on here. So to see the aura in the mirror means you can feel it on the body. It's very profound. But let's say you're doing a 9 to 5 job and you don't think you have time to meditate when you go home. Well, meditate in the mirror in the bathroom on your restroom break. Do your breathing while you're sitting at your desk. You can integrate all of this. And by the way, I think it should be illegal for a person to work more than 4 to 6 hours a day. I think it's utterly disgusting what the world has become and the way priorities have been set. In ancient times, families were together, and the work was a joy to do. We didn't separate families to go to these unnatural cubicles and warehouses and factories. And yeah, it should be, we invent all of these tools. Why do we invent a tool to make life easier? What do we invariably end up doing? More work. So here we are with all these tools to make life easier, and all we've opted to do with it is more work. So I can't wait till these concepts are commonly understood. And these are one of the societal changes that I know will come from that, is nobody will see the value in working more than 4 hours a day. Honestly, 6 is too much too.
It reminds me of scene in, I think it's the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. It might be the one with Johnny Depp. I can't remember. I'm pretty sure it's not the one with Gene. But I think it's the one with Johnny Depp. Well, the guy, he works as the guy that puts the cap on the toothpaste or some kind of tube. And basically he gets his job replaced by a robot. And so he goes basically from being this worker to being the guy that has to come in and repair the robot. And so it's a real funny thing to look at that, because it's like, you're right. We made a robot to make this job, doesn't need a person, but we still need a person to fix our invention. Right. Well, as kind of, we're going to wind up, I'm going to ask another question here. Please talk for a while on this one. When you look back at your journey, right? Because we all have our own individual journeys, and it's really important to look at that, to look at where we were and where we are now. What would you say basically to your early self? Because like you said, back in 2011, you're kind of at wit's ends with this. What would you say at the beginning of this path? What insight or perspective, if you will, would you or would have made the process clearer, and you probably wouldn't have, basically, like you said, you walked away from this?
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the primary things that I would say to that past self is the interconnectivity of collective consciousness. Be who you are now. Realize that who you are now can empathically connect to any part of the creation, and know yourself as having been or being any being that's ever or will be born. So choose to be who you are now, because who you are now is who you're supposed to be. And don't forget about God. And as within, so without. So God is on the inside, and spiritualists are very good at that. The religious people put God on the outside, and they don't do God on the inside. But I say to the spiritual people, as within, so without. That's one of the primary spiritual things that every spiritual person can agree on. So obviously God is outside of us too, not just on the inside. And I would say to that self that God within is a gift, God without is a guide, and the gift is no good without the guide. And that would have helped me to avoid the major pitfalls that almost costed me everything dear in my life.
Right. Yeah, there's a time and a place that we get sidetracked from the vision that we have and the ability to look at it. I can definitely understand what it's like to basically lose the confidence in the image, or the confidence in the ideal. I could see that. So actually, let me ask this question too. Through your journey, what kinds of stuff have you studied? What have you looked at? I had mentioned a couple individuals that I've looked at. I mean, obviously Rumi is a good one for anybody who's looked at Sufism. Well, actually, period. Same with Yogananda and Vivekananda. Those people, you don't have to be a Vedantist to look at them. But anyways, what kind of stuff have you studied and helped you understand where you are for my audience who may be thinking about this kind of thing?
Well, that's a very good question. So I'll start by saying that I haven't done any external information of any kind since 2010 under the advice of God through the Holy Spirit. I was personally requested to detach entirely from all external information and only get it from the inside. But before then, I did quite a bit. So I started out in the Mormon faith, and so I had Mormon doctrine to help, and then I read the Bible, in particular the New Testament, and that helped. Then I got turned on to metaphysics, and I read the Law of One channelings by Ra, and that really helped. And the Seth materials. Have you heard of the Seth materials? It's a channeling done by Jane Roberts in the 60s and early 70s, and it's actually, Seth material is huge. That's the straight metaphysics, like just straight delivery. It is so good, and it's been a part of my mental stability framework. So the Seth material is several books, but in particular, I recommend Seth Speaks. And it talks all about the metaphysical nature of reality, the multiplicity of personality, the simultaneous nature of time, the fact that beliefs create your reality, that you're not stuck in a situation that you can take control and you can create the type of reality that you need to. And then Seth goes on to describe the metaphysical process behind that and briefly touches on the energy. And I feel blessed to have read Seth and the Law of One immensely, because as I opened up to and became directly experiential, I've had to flush so much other materials that I exposed myself to because it just didn't fit in with my direct experience. But these two things that they did, there's almost little, very little, if any, that I had to dismiss from either one. And then during my time as a teacher, I think this is worth noting as well, since I did develop my philosophy, everything from my direct experience, I get people from all different walks of life. And the Taoists, the Qigong people, they're like, oh my God, Michael, everything that you say or nearly is taught in Qigong and traditional Taoist philosophy. So many of my direct experiences, the Qigong masters say, oh, you access the rainbow body, oh, yeah, you did this, you did that, and it's all in alignment. The Essenic philosophy, the Essenes, everything that I talk about is in alignment with the Essenic philosophy. I've had some devotees from the Essenic philosophy just be like, wow, everything, are you an Essene? No, I'm just a person, figuring this out. And I've had people from the Toltec philosophy and obviously from the yogic traditions as well. So all these great, respectable cultures, I just happen to tap into the same wisdom as them. That's proof right there that it's universal, and that gives me the confidence, to continue on. So I think God told me to detach from the external information so that I could put a new spin on it, because this is a new day and a new age. And a lot of these old disciplines, they require so much time, so much energy, and so much focus. Like Qigong, it takes like 3 years to just get it at the very basic level of spiritualization. Who's got time for that? So I think the Creator understands where we're at in our modern age and knows that we need the red pill, right? We need a way to access this and access it quickly. So I definitely believe there is divinity in that. But yeah, I would recommend Seth Speaks and the raw material from intellectual things that I've read. Yeah.
Nice. Thank you. All right. So if you give your links again for me, and then does your website have a contact me form on it? Just let me ask that question real quick.
It doesn't have a contact form, but my email address is listed there, and so anybody can send me an email. You can also sign up for my email list and get invited to live streams. So I have 3 websites, but they're my 2 teachings. There's the Avatar Energy Mastery Institute, which is the self-empowerment through extrasensory perception, all about your self-mastery, which is half of the formula. And then I have the Metaphysical Church of the Tree of Life, which is all about taking that self-empowerment and extrasensory perception and understanding your relationship to the Creator, to the universe, to the collective consciousness, and to the divine mind. Both of these are under the umbrella of my bio site, which is Michael Monk, MichaelMonk.bio, michaelmonk.bio. You can access both of those. Whether you're interested in the self-empowerment or the Metaphysical Church of the Tree of Life, there's a free access portal. There's a free introductory course on Avatar Energy Mastery, and there's 2 live streams per month that you'll get an invitation to. And then if you like what you see, then you can choose to be a supporting member and proceed further.
Nice. Very good. Well, Michael, I want to thank you for coming on my show and talking to me about this thing.
Thank you, Brandon. It was a wonderful conversation.
You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Thank you for listening. This is a free podcast based upon the value for value model. If you find value in this, or any episode, you can return that value by liking the show, subscribing to this channel, leaving a review, or sharing with a friend on your social media accounts. You can also donate on my website. Thank you again. This is BT for Truth and Shadow Podcast. You are the light in the darkness.
And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
It's a very strange, funny time where everybody would love to be able to be themselves, but they can't because they must fall in line with the person in front of them.
The terrible thing about searching for the truth is that sometimes you find it.
You take the red pill. Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more. You stay in Wonderland. Believe whatever you want to believe.
See, the more at peace you become, the less you tolerate chaos. You stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you.
You want to live that kind of life? I wish you the best. I'll be on the other side somewhere.
Protecting your peace isn't about shutting the world out. It's about keeping your inner world clear enough to hear your own soul.
The truth, nothing more.